Hello and welcome to the Mac Gamecast episode 60. I am your host, Jon Carr. With me here is co-host Casper. How you doing?
Woo, episode 60. We've hit the target frame rate.
That was an 80p or 14, or I guess we're actually on 4K monitors, so
Yeah.
whatever that is. But yeah, episode 60, pretty cool. Nice landmark. We do have some fun news to talk about, news slash details. Cyberpunk's out for Mac finally, long awaited. That's really hype. You've been messing around a lot with Tahoe, in the betas and stuff. So we're mostly talking about that today. A few other things may pop up, but mostly that, I would say.
Definitely.
And yeah, so thanks to you for being here all this time, and our listeners and the other team. We don't have our other show host on very often anymore, just because of they've gotten really busy, or they've moved, or there's different schedules. But
Mhm.
they're still around. We should have Lily on maybe next week for a uber deep dive ultra cyberpunk review thing, because
Yeah.
her and I both put like 100+ hours into the game, so we want to like go A through Z, everything we love about it, everything we don't. Talk about even like the sequel coming out on our wish list, and we're talking about adjacent media like Edge Runners and the comics and blah blah blah. It'll be like a massive cyberpunk themed
Mhm.
episode. But for today, probably going to focus more on performance of the game, but of course Casper can throw out his thoughts as well.
Mhm.
And yeah, and all the Tahoe stuff. So we might as well start there, I suppose, with Cyberpunk, because we heard it was coming out, and but we had some questions about like the ray tracing and Metal, what was it, Metal 4 and FSR and this and that. But then
Yeah.
it released before Tahoe. We thought it might be delayed until it came out. So why don't you maybe you want to hop in there with your experiences and thoughts?
Yeah. So, as I've mentioned on some prior episodes, there were a lot of aspects of Cyberpunk's release that were confusing to say the least, because when it was announced by Apple that it was happening, they said it would be coming with frame generation and ray reconstruction and the whole shebang.
Right.
But at the time, there wasn't a native Metal API for frame generation or ray reconstruction. That was announced with Metal 4 for macOS Tahoe, but of course, Cyberpunk was scheduled for early this year, even though it did wind up coming out, middle of the year instead of early, but whatever.
Yeah, they delayed it
Um,
for their 2.3 patch, so
yeah,
that's what happened.
but it's still, it's before macOS Tahoe, right? So there were a bunch of
Yeah.
questions on how they were going to handle all of that. Now we have some answers. And for one thing, ray reconstruction, or as the metal version of it is called, just metal denoising. That's effectively what ray reconstruction is. It's just NVIDIA's term for denoising of the ray tracing output.
I see.
But that's just completely absent. And I assume Apple's original announcement just meant that it would eventually get it, but it isn't in there right now. So you can enable ray tracing, but the ray reconstruction, ray tracing denoising feature from Metal isn't in there, and there isn't an alternative in there. Frame generation, on the other hand, is in there, but it isn't Metal frame generation. It's FSR 3.1 frame generation. Now you can mix and match, so you can use Metal FX upscaling with AMD's FSR 3.1 frame generation, and that's how I've been playing the game. And it does work quite well, at least at higher frame rates, as it is with these frame generation technologies. You always get the input latency of the native frame rate, and then you get the smoothness of the frame generation output frame rate, right? So I'm generally targeting an end result frame rate of like, I forget what I put it at. It was like 80 or 90, I forget which one, which means I'm getting the input latency of either 40 or 45 FPS, right? But I personally find 40 to 45 FPS to be a fine level of input latency, especially when I'm playing with controller, which I tend to prefer for these kind of games.
Yeah.
But then with my variable refresh monitor, or in Apple terminology, ProMotion, but it isn't an Apple display, so,
Yeah.
branding aside, I would get
Mhm.
the smoothness of that higher frame rate. And it works really well. It's a feature that I think is especially well suited to these variable refresh rate, or ProMotion displays. Going to work excellently on a MacBook Pro, I assume, as well, where you can then perhaps target 60 FPS native render and then render to the screen 120 FPS, where half of them are generated as intermediate frames between quote unquote real frames.
Right.
So it's a good way of getting some smoothness out of it. But for now, it is using AMD FSR, not the Metal quote unquote native to the system API that is coming with Tahoe. And I am playing with all of this on macOS Tahoe. So if there were any like if on Tahoe already in the version of Cyberpunk released, I would be seeing it, but there
Right.
isn't.
Yeah. Right. Sure. Some like hidden code you can only unlock with Tahoe or something.
Yeah, because Apple has been involved with this port, so maybe they were looking ahead and already had some of this stuff implemented, but that doesn't seem to be the case.
Yeah.
It might still be implemented in the underlying source code, just disabled, but it's disabled for
Right.
everyone.
Yeah, I mean, Cyberpunk itself as a game has been like the beta testing ground for pretty much all of the industry's like cutting edge tech for
Mm-hmm.
years, ever since it came out. They've worked really closely with mostly NVIDIA, but also AMD. Like all the latest frame gen and DLSS and everything was like pretty much, at least in terms of a big popular AAA title, it was like always first introduced with them. NVIDIA put out special videos.
Mm-hmm.
Like just with Cyberpunk mostly, maybe a few other games here and there, but it was almost always Cyberpunk. So I do
Mm-hmm.
wonder if they might do something like that for Apple just later this year. We can hope.
I definitely think so. And it is also, I would say, like very recent titles have also been very impressive on their implementation of Metal FX upscaling, but this is certainly also a very, very good implementation of Metal FX. It includes dynamic resolution scaling, which is I love to see, where you don't just have the option of setting performance balance or quality upscaling, but you can set a range of like any resolution from 50% up to 75%, or even 100%
Yeah.
or whatever you want, and then
Yeah.
just try aiming for the best resolution you can while hitting this frame rate. And that's why I said, as I said before, I've set mine to like 80 or 90 or whatever it was, and you just
Yeah.
get the highest resolution it can manage at any given scene, hitting that frame rate. A few games have this. Assassin's Creed has it as well and stuff. But the thing that makes it a really good implementation of Metal Effects upscaling is that when a scene changes drastically, sometimes it can take a bit for the engine to figure out how complex the scene is to render. So you might either not at all hit your target frame rate because it's already rendering at a much higher resolution from a previous frame that wasn't as complex. So you get frame rate loss while it realizes the complexity and reduces the resolution. Or the reverse, where it's like, oh, that scene is actually a lot simpler to render, so it takes it a while to catch up and render at a higher resolution. The dynamic resolution scaling in the Mac version of Cyberpunk, as far as I've seen so far, has been really good at updating to the changes in complexity of the scene really rapidly, and not having massive frame drops, and not taking super long to catch up on resolution or anything. It's very responsive in that respect.
Yeah, absolutely. I tested that while you were on your trip,
Mm-hmm.
and same thing. So I'm testing on an M1 Pro. You're testing on an M4 Max or Pro? What are you on?
M4 Max, yeah, the full
M4
die.
Max. Okay, so you have basically the latest and greatest, and I have like the first gen. Basically, I have the minimum machine to run it, and you have like the maximum machine to run it, essentially,
Yeah, there
on
is
that.
the M3 Ultra as well, but it is for
Well, I'm
gaming
just
performance
going,
they are pretty
yeah,
close.
I'm just going from a pure like M1, M2, M3, M4 sort of
Right. Okay.
linear thought process,
Mhm.
basically. And yeah, I'm really impressed by the performance. I can basically just run it on medium, whether it's directly on my laptop, get good frame rates. I can plug in my 4K ultra wide monitor, still get good frame rates, again, because of the dynamic resolution scaling, and maintain pretty stable 30 FPS. I tried a bunch of scenes. I got into a bunch of combat. I blew stuff up. I ran around a bigger city. I went indoors, and it was all just, yeah, like there was no, I was expecting like hitches and stutters and like
Mhm.
clipping or stuff being slow to load in or whatever. Like I'm used to playing in the past, especially on Intel, or basically a demanding game on Mac. I'm just
Mhm.
like, well, this isn't going to be very well optimized, probably. But I'm just like, it's super smooth. It looks good. The frames aren't jumping. They're not hitching. Yes,
Definitely.
playing it on my cranked PC, which I no longer have, looked better, but not insanely better. It's really just kind of missing the ray tracing because I can't enable. Yeah, I think you need an M3 chip at least or something to enable the ray tracing.
Yeah, so M3 and M4 have built-in ray tracing hardware, where M1 and M2 generation chips do not.
There you go.
And,
Yeah.
and that also leaves us in a funny situation right now, where if you buy the most expensive Mac Pro you can get, you do not get ray tracing because it still has the M2 Ultra. Um, yeah, I do
That
want
is
to circle
funny.
back
Yeah.
to ray tracing because I have some less positive thoughts on that.
Yeah.
But first, I would like to also mention that um, in further adding to how well they've done on the Mac port here, I really think that the preset for this Mac is a fantastic addition. Because we are dealing with a limited selection of chips and Macs out there. And this gives us this almost console like experience where the developers of games like this can fine tune a preset that they feel is optimal for the hardware. And we still have all of the options. So it isn't like fully like a lockdown console experience. You have all of the
Yeah.
options to fiddle around with. But there's a preset made for each Mac model. And you can just go for this Mac. And then you've got some settings that the developers find optimal for your hardware configuration. And I think that is it's such a good feature that right now you can basically only get on a Mac. I'm dubious as to how scalable that is in the future because right now we have M1 to M4 and all of the variations in between. But as we get M5, M6, M7, and so on,
Yeah.
the list of configurations at some point explodes. Assuming that your game can scale all the way back to M1 hardware. If we're always in a
Correct.
situation where a game can only really work on 4 generations of chips, then maybe this is just feasible forever.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
certainly nice right now that we can get this right. It's very good.
Yeah, it's exactly what I was going to say. Right now, we're in a pretty sweet spot where you're basically running it on four presets. And
Mm-hmm.
crucially, as you pointed out, you can tweak everything completely A through Z. It just switches from preset to custom. If like pretty much the only thing I do in my games is to go and turn off motion blur. I hate it.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you leave everything the same, just take off motion blur, it goes custom because technically
Mm-hmm.
it is. Um, yeah, it's really all about comfort, frame rate. We've talked about this on the show before, like some years ago. Like, what's ideal for you? Some people are like 60 FPS or die, or 30 FPS. I don't care. I'm more in that. I would rather have a higher resolution and graphical fidelity and a lower frame rate, not below 30, mind you. But like,
Mm-hmm.
I'll still take 30. Would I prefer 45 to 60? Yes, but I would rather the game look better and have lower FPS than higher FPS and the game look worse, personally.
For me, I
That's
feel
just
like the
me.
PlayStation 5 has taught me that I don't like 30, but I really like 40. I think 40
Mm,
FPS is a really good compromise between the input latency being okay and the time we have in milliseconds to render a graphically interesting and complex scene.
yeah,
I feel like the difference between 30 and 40 feels to me on an input latency side bigger than the difference between 40 and 60, even though it's obviously more
I
FPS
agree.
different, right?
I agree. 40, 45 is my general target on like a
Mm-hmm.
Mac overall, and I was able to get that on my laptop. When I hooked up my 4K display, it
Mm-hmm.
dropped, to like 30, 30,
Yeah.
33, so that's not surprising.
Mm-hmm. But
To be fair, I
that's
was working
where
with the preset. I didn't like try to really tweak it to, make it stretch or bend in some way. I just
yeah.
quick test. Yeah.
But that's also where the so like the variable refresh rate promotion stuff really comes into to play and shines. Um, because if on a traditional locked refresh rate display, you're not hitting either 30 or 60, then you get all these screen tearing and bad things. You can, of course, use VSync to get around that, but then you're effectively limiting yourself to a 30 hertz experience if you can't hit 60 and so on.
Yeah.
Input latency might still be better if you can hit higher frame rates, but that's a different discussion.
Yes.
Where with variable refresh rate, you can actually achieve that 40 or 45 or whatever FPS experience and have a good native screen update experience, which is lovely. So I really think like promotion is one of the biggest technologies for making gameplay smoothness and input latency experiences so much better. Because you don't need to hit 60 for it to be a good experience, which you kind of do on a static refresh rate display.
Yep.
Right. So that was one thing. The game has also reportedly been highly optimized for tile memory and tile-based deferred rendering, which is the GPU architecture you find on Apple Silicon. So they have really put effort into this. Lots of positives and things to say all around on that front, but there is one big negative, and I do unfortunately think it's a negative stemming from the way the hardware works fundamentally, because we see the same problem exacerbated even on Assassin's Creed Shadows, and that is the ray tracing thing. And when Assassin's Creed Shadows came out, we were talking about how the performance was kind of lackluster and disappointing on the Mac. Yep. And now that we have Cyberpunk as well, I do think that part of that, not the whole story, but part of that, is that the M3 and M4 generation hardware has sort of a real-time ray tracing problem. They come with hardware accelerated ray tracing, and it is good in some aspects, but it certainly has problems. And if you enable ray tracing in Cyberpunk, you are going to see a bigger performance dip relative to the hardware class than you'll see on NVIDIA.
Right.
So when I say relative to performance class, what I mean is like if you run the game at ultra without ray tracing and you get the same performance as you would on any given NVIDIA card running at the same settings, and then you enable ray tracing, the delta is bigger on the Mac side than it is with the NVIDIA GPUs.
Yeah.
But that's for initially turning it on. And here it becomes a bit interesting, I think, from a technical side, because the difference between, I don't think there is a low ray tracing preset, but the medium preset, which I think is the lowest, and I think it's called Psycho, the highest tier ray tracing.
Yep.
Then
yep.
The delta between those settings on the Mac is actually somewhat small. Like it's still substantial. If you do want to turn on ray tracing, I do not recommend going Psycho because it doesn't even run very well on the M4 Ultra with frame generation and all the jazz. Yeah. But it would appear to me that I've only tested on the M4 generation, but in theory that should be better than M3 on the ray tracing front, right? It would appear that it has a latency problem, but not a throughput problem. So it can work through a lot of ray tracing computations, but the time to get the first computation done, it's almost like it offloads it to a different hardware block or something. It takes a while to start up or something. I don't really like for each frame of calculation. I don't know the inner workings of the chip, but what I do know is that the cost of using ray tracing versus not is very big, but the cost of scaling up to higher settings isn't that big compared to the competing hardware. And that also checks out if you look at other performance-related ray tracing metrics. Because if people have done tests using offline renders where it's not real-time renders, they're not rendering frames directly to the scene, they're rendering in something like Blender or Maya or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And in those settings, the M3 and M4 hardware accelerated ray tracing tends to perform really well. But in those settings, throughput also is the thing that matters the most. You don't really care about the initial latency because you just want to work through all the frames as fast as possible. It doesn't matter how long it takes to get to the next frame. It matters how long it takes to get to all of them. And I think that's sort of the unfortunate situation with ray tracing on the current generation Apple Silicon. And for that reason, just like CD Projekt Red, because none of the for this Mac presets enable ray tracing, I don't recommend using ray tracing on any Mac, unfortunately.
At this time.
At this time, at least, yeah. And it may be possible that when Tahoe officially releases, that there can be some kind of driver level or API level fixes or improvements that makes it more worthwhile, but I do think it's going to have to be a hardware upgrade to fix that problem.
Like an M5 variant or something.
Something like that,
Not variant, I mean next gen chip.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting to talk about that. For one, the game looks really good anyway without ray tracing. It's a
Mhm.
pretty game, even though it's almost 5 years. This November it'll be 5 years old. Um, in November 2020 when it first came out. But the game has been continuously updated, as we've talked about on previous shows. So it doesn't look like a 4.5, 5 year old game. It looks pretty current or very close to current
Definitely.
of a game. It's even on low, the game looks pretty good. On medium, the game looks very good. On high, the game looks really good. So if you can, medium high is like the sweet spot. Even I haven't been able to mess around with the ray tracing. You don't recommend it. Maybe if you care less about the FPS hit or something, even medium ray tracing looks pretty good because I remember messing around with it on my PC just out of curiosity.
Mhm. But
High
I
to
will say,
psycho is yeah, like no difference.
but I will
Yeah,
say, even on like my M4 Max, pretty beefy computer, if I enable medium ray tracing and I don't enable any of the additional checkboxes like ray traced sun shadows or whatever, just
yeah,
baseline ray traced lighting, medium, and I keep everything else at the settings I would otherwise be getting like
yeah,
80, 90 FPS in, right?
yeah.
I dropped to, what was it, like 47 FPS or something like that, and
Oh wow, so
that's
it's
with
eating
frame
a lot.
generation.
Without it, you'd be at like 20 or something.
Yeah. So
Yeah, okay, that's pretty intense. That's pretty
the
intense.
input latency on that is not going to be a good experience.
Yeah, that's
Um,
pretty intense.
but
Yeah,
but then if you set it to psycho and you enable all the bells and whistles and you put on full path tracing and everything, right?
yeah.
I only dropped to like 25, which isn't that big of a drop relative to where I was when you enable full path tracing and everything.
Correct, correct. Considering
Um,
how much is being added, yeah,
yeah,
the load, yeah.
um,
Interesting. So that's the delta you were talking about. Now,
exactly.
to be fair, the game looks insanely good with high-end ray tracing on.
Yeah.
Especially, you just go take a drive around at night or in the rain, it's like, oh my God, this game looks amazing. The
Hmm.
game looks very good anyway, but with it, it's just like, it goes from, let's say, if the game's graphics are like an 8 out of 10 or 7.5, 8 out of 10, it easily jumps to like 10 out of 10 or 11 out of 10 with like high-end ray tracing on. But
Hmm.
performance is ultimately everything. I'm still impressed. I did tune into CD Projekt's patch 2.3 stream like a week ago,
Hmm.
and they did say yes, we work directly with Apple on the optimization and those presets. And I was like, okay, cool.
Hmm.
So people can work with Apple. You can optimize a high-end game. I think maybe the issue with Assassin's Creed Shadows is, from what I understand, ray tracing is baked into the game and you cannot turn it
Exactly.
off.
Exactly. It's
So we're
mandatory ray
seeing
tracing.
it's mandatory. Yeah, even a lot of PC people complained about that because
Mm.
even the average PC hardware actually isn't that high end,
Yeah.
considering there's millions and billions or whatever of gaming PCs, right?
Hmm.
It's a small percentage who have those like latest greatest GPUs. So a lot of people complained about that even in the PC world, which is speak of the Mac world for AC Shadows.
Hmm.
Yeah, so too bad for
Definitely.
us, I guess, at this time.
Definitely.
But
Um,
yeah, yeah,
but like as you were pointing out as well before, there is every single patch they make for Cyberpunk, they add so much stuff, and it's like the game has been out for what, like 5 years now, and you keep adding so much every patch. I also just read the patch notes for this 2.3 that came with the Mac version, and it's like,
yeah,
as you said, they've added so many like technical new technologies, like there was a FSR4 is in there now. There's the
yep,
new Intel XeSS upscaler. All of this, similar to Metal FX upscaling and DLSS and all that, but they keep updating with the latest technologies of all of this stuff. Um, so it really is. I fully expect that when Tahoe does land for everybody else, that they're gonna update with ray reconstruction and everything because they have a track record of keeping up with the latest technologies from all vendors, basically.
would be nice. One thing I am impressed by is the spatial audio support. If you
Oh,
have,
that's so good.
say, the Pro earbuds, because even on PC, it's actually really hard to set up. You kind of have to like buy a license to one of the few surround sound thingies and or do
Hmm.
all these weird workarounds. It's actually quite a hassle to try to get. Even if say you have surround sound headphones, speakers, whatever, it's not that simple to just
Hmm.
go in the game and enable it on PC. It's a whole trip. But if you just have, say, some, what is it, Apple? earbud Pro 2s or whatever the minimum spatial audio is. It's just like it just works. I tested it. You go in, and so that was pretty cool. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's once again one of those signs of a really good tailor-made port because it is using the Apple, I think it's called Phase audio library to give the full spatial audio experience, and it has head tracking and everything. So if you have one of the Apple AirPods with head tracking, you move your
AirPods,
head.
that's it. Thank
Yeah,
you.
you move your head around, and it's not just spatial audio in the sense that the environment is there, but it follows your head around, and it's so well made. Um,
Yeah, very immersive, extra immersive. So
mhm,
get a pair of those bad boys, slap them on your ears, fire up the game, and yeah, you're good to go. I want to loop back really quick to the presets.
mhm,
I personally hope moving forward, even though this may sound narrow-minded or something, I hope they kind of like say whatever, say Cyberpunk 2, it is being made, but it's probably not out for like five more, like 2030 or something is their current estimate.
mhm,
I don't want them to stretch back like 8 years or whatever of hardware support. Like, I would rather they keep it relatively more current. We already saw pretty major issues with, say, the first release of Cyberpunk because they were trying to support like 10-year-old consoles or something. And it was just this huge issue. I'm not talking about Cyberpunk in general. I'm talking maybe about, this is ultimately maybe even worth a whole podcast, but like, yeah, can these developers with these AAA games, because indie games kind of do whatever, if they had a range, like you just need to support the last 3 to 4 Mac chips and make some presets for them, boom, you're good to go.
mhm,
You know, I think, I mean, I imagine that's easier for the developers and it's like a better quote unquote out of the box experience for the Mac gamer. But the question is, could they have done that without Apple? Because they did say they worked with Apple directly. So will everyone work with Apple directly? No. Some people just spit out an in-house port,
mhm,
i.e., like Borderlands 3, for example, way back in 2019. So I'm curious,
mhm,
maybe I'm being too narrow minded on it, but like you say, I really like the presets as a starting point. It feels great. You don't have to like be really technically minded to tweak all the settings and know how it all might, hit your FPS or whatever. You can just go like, I have this chip, I have this config, it plays great. Bam, I'm happy.
mhm.
Um,
I
I
mean,
don't know.
in theory, all it requires to make those presets is a lot of time, a lot of max, and someone who can test the configurations going, how does that perform? Oh, okay, that performs like that. What looks better, this or that? Okay, it looks better to use that one with that performance. Just going through the
Right, right.
combinatorics of it and then giving a list to the developers. I thought this was good on this machine, and then they make the config file.
Right. They implement it. Yeah.
Yeah. So in theory, as long as you have the hardware and the manpower and the man hours for it, it's not like a hard thing to do, but it does
Right.
require that you have, all of the relevant hardware configurations
Right.
going back however many years you want to set it up for, right?
Right. Right. Right.
But
Right.
you can also just do blanket like buckets of things and just going, anything that's M1 or M2 generation default to low, anything that whatever,
Right.
it's still better than nothing to have some sort of
Yeah.
categorization like that.
Yeah. But it's interesting because I still remember our initial episodes when Silicon was announced, and I feel like we're really finally starting to see that bear fruit. We have a foundational bedrock of good hardware. I want to say like because it has limited configurations, it's reliable.
Hmm.
The Intels were much more malleable in their configurations, which pros and cons, to be fair.
Hmm.
Let's not say it's just all 100% better, but the end result is, well, the performance is better on Silicon over Intel, at least at this time, and I assume that'll continue to be the case. Because I remember even playing Cyberpunk and Boot Camp on my old iMac, and it was all right. It wasn't great. It
Yeah.
wasn't great. Um, that that was one of the things that prompted me to get a PC. Actually, was like I really want to play this game, but at way higher settings. um, yeah. So my what I'm getting at is I'm happy to see this release. I think it's a big deal. It's a real point of prestige and pride
Hmm.
for the Mac platform. Apple supported it nicely. There was all these cool splash pages on the App Store. It's also on GOG and Epic and Steam. I think it's on Epic anyway. Um, yeah, they did a lot of cool splash pages for it. There was no launch discount except for GOG, so that's kind of weird. Well, okay, the App Store version is the combined Ultimate Edition with the expansion, and it's like $8 cheaper instead of 90. It's like $82 US.
Right.
Um, I paid full price for both the game and the expansion. I pre-ordered both of them, so it's like but I'm a fanatic about the game, so that's me. But the game honestly goes on sale like 4 to 6 times a year on all the major platforms. So if you're like, I mean, of course, I think it's well worth the money
Mhm.
personally. Like you can get a lot of hours out of this game. But if you're either budget conscious or your library's full anyway, and you're like, oh, I'll buy it on sale. Well, the summer fall sales coming up on Steam, like it'll be on sale,
Yeah, I think
in
we
short
already
order.
had the
So
summer sale, but yeah, there's the autumn
I think we
sale
did.
and
The autumn
yeah.
sale, it'll be 30, 50% off or something, whatever,
Hmm.
like guaranteed. So if you want to wait, just wait for a sale. But like you'll get a deep dive of the next episode with Lily and I, or maybe Casper. But I think it's fully worth the money. I've already put 100 hours into it, and that was like one run.
Hmm.
It wasn't even like multiple runs. Of course, I'm one of those like go everywhere, try to do everything type players. You can finish the game much sooner than that if you want.
Hmm.
Um, and of course, the expansion adds like an extra like 20, 30 hours of gameplay as well. So,
Hmm.
but
But
yeah,
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 just like you point out there, it is also we kind of expected this, but it was an open question for us for a while. Very happy to see that the game is releasing across all of the major platforms. There's no timed exclusivity on the App Store or anything like that. And if you already own the game on Steam, you can just go and play it. You don't have to wait for timed exclusivity to run out or anything like that. It's just
yeah.
there.
I was afraid about that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm.
I do have an issue syncing my cloud saves.
I had that too. Yeah,
Yeah,
it
It's
sucks.
pulled one from like 2022 or something, like a
Hmm.
year or two, and I'm like level 24. My real save is like I'm level 60 or 61, like almost max level.
Hmm.
And I haven't dug into it further, but I would like to try and resolve that because I don't really want to start over.
Yeah.
Now, quick note: if you have the Phantom Liberty expansion, so you've already beat the game on PC, you didn't buy the expansion. You're like, hey, well, or console, whatever. You beat it somewhere and you're like, well, I'd like to check out the expansion. There is an option when you start a new game to fast forward a character so you can jump into the expansion.
Mm.
I tried it really quick. It puts you, I think, to level 15. It's not that the expansion's level gated, it's story gated. You have to get a pretty decent ways into the main story, actually, to
Mm.
unlock the expansion content. So that's an option if you sort of don't want to start from scratch. Um, I wouldn't recommend this as a new player. You would miss tons of stuff and you'd be dropped into the middle of the story.
Hmm.
But if you've already played a lot of the game or you've already beat the game, you can safely say, well, I can just, if you want to start a new character, boom, you can fast forward a little bit.
Right.
Yeah, so that's a nice little option if you want.
Hmm.
Because, yeah, 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 just
Mm.
like that. So,
Yeah, but I have heard other people talk about having issues with the cloud sync save game stuff, and people talking about
mm,
how even when they got it to synchronize some of their files, the Mac version said they were corrupted and they worked fine on Windows
mm,
still, and all this sort of thing. In my
right.
case, it just refused to sync any of them. I didn't care that much because last time I played it was like 2023 on my iMac in boot
Yeah,
camp, and I wanted a fresh start anyway because I could barely remember anything.
yeah.
So I just started a new character and I'm using that now anyway. But it just didn't work for any of the saves I had at all. A lot of people are reporting what you did, where it's like some of the saves are there, but that the others aren't. And some people say that when they finally get them there, it says they're corrupted and this whole thing.
Yeah, that
Um,
was definitely a bummer because I really wanted to mess around with my high level character and go to the expansion because Dogtown, which is the expansion, that's not a spoiler, the location, it is much denser than the regular game in terms of scene complexity. There's just a lot more like trash and buildings and random stuff, and there's more whether scripted or passive or whatever NPC stuff going on as well. There's more like say cars driving around, there's more fights breaking out, there's just more stuff happening
mhm,
in this like contained space. So I'm like, well, how well is my FPS in Dogtown? Well, I didn't go into Dogtown yet because my save's corrupted. And then I tried the new save, but not to spoil anything, but you can't just literally jump into Dogtown. There's quite takes actually quite a while to get into Dogtown, even though you've started the expansion quest. So
Mhm.
I couldn't do it quickly, so I didn't bother. It would have taken me probably like 2 hours or something of time, and I'm like, well, yeah, I love the game, but I'm just doing a quick test, so
Yeah.
I'm not sure how well, I mean, the game is well optimized, but I would expect, because even on PC, I recall, I think I dropped like 3 to 5 FPS in
Mhm.
Dogtown on
Mhm.
average. Not a lot. So yeah,
Yeah, I do
just
also
get,
expect that they're gonna resolve some of the save game syncing issues in a patch somewhat soon or
I
something.
hope
Because
so. I hope so. Yeah.
yeah,
I'm
but
very attached to my character. It's like 96, 7 hours into him or something. So
mhm.
yeah, yeah,
But all in all, like they've really done a good job on the port. There's only the ray tracing stuff that is a bit lackluster, but I don't think it's their fault. Um,
right.
yeah, it's a good port. And then actually another thing that's just creme de la creme of a good port. Um, it works with Apple's game controller framework, and it takes full advantage of controller specific functionality. So I'm using a DualSense PlayStation 5 controller, and the light bar works, the adaptive triggers work, the whole shebang. Just like if you were playing it on the PlayStation itself. You get the things where if you're holding a gun of a certain type, the trigger itself has a different feel when you push it down to a gun of a different type, and you
Oh
can
wow.
feel the car's what's it called, like gearbox shifting in the pedal when it
Oh
shifts gear and everything. It's really nice.
wow, that's impressive.
Mhm.
Yeah. I gotta say, again, this is more of a deep dive thing, but even on the side, after playing the game a while, I really started to enjoy, because I used to, for example, fast travel everywhere, because I always have like 10 quests to do and side quests. So I'm like running all over the map, and my buddy is playing the game, and he's like, "I never fast travel. I just drive everywhere, and it's great." And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to start trying that. And I actually started really. I occasionally still fast travel in rare cases, mostly like Badlands related stuff. But I really started enjoying the game more, soaking in the atmosphere of Night City, the environments. I would catch up on stuff like my phone calls and text messages while I'm like driving a motorcycle, or I'd find a radio station I really like and cruise around.
Mhm.
Sometimes you stumble on some really interesting new quest, or you find a whole new like section or neighborhood of a city you never even noticed because you're always fast traveling or whatever. And I'm just like, there's a lot of cool stuff. Just walk around,
They've also
drive
just
around.
added self-driving cars in the latest 2.3 patch.
Yeah, 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 they did. And it's not much of a spoiler, but yeah, Johnny can hang out with you now too. I'm like, that's cool.
Mhm.
In
But
the
yeah,
cars and stuff.
like in Final Fantasy 15 as well, and Red Dead Redemption, and all these games with great atmosphere, I tend to do the same where I don't fast travel at all, um, and you just soak in the atmosphere, and it's really nice. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
but I do think a feature like self driving cars is perfect for that as well, because sometimes I just want to soak in the atmosphere. I don't want to worry about like I don't want to hit anything when I drive around. So just
yeah.
like put it as self drive and just like look around and enjoy the atmosphere. I think it's a great feature for a game like that.
It is a great feature, and driving in first person is also relatively difficult in the game.
Yeah,
Unless you're on a motorcycle, then it's easier.
I always
Um,
change the camera when I drive because I just
yeah,
can't.
I,
But
I only do it on a motorcycle. On a car, forget it.
same.
Um, unless I'm in a firefight, then I switch to first person because it's more fun.
Mm-hmm.
But the expansion had some cool car fight related quests. So I'll leave it at that. Yeah, so like the self-driving feature would be great for that. Just chill, in
Exactly.
first person if you wanted with the music. Yeah, you can't do it like while you're in combat, obviously, but you can do it, I think, almost anywhere else. Occasionally, and they said they kind of put some logic in or whatever to de-aggro the enemies because over time the game's patched in some stuff where basically if you've pissed off certain gangs, they will come after you
Mm.
like while you're driving around. I've been ambushed pretty spectacularly sometimes in some unexpected ways, including getting rammed off like a tall bridge in my motorcycle, and I just went flying like
Oh wow.
on 50 feet or something. It was pretty funny. So I was so unexpected too. I think I was in the middle of a phone call. I was like, "What the shit?" It just, like character goes flying. But they did say it's not impossible to get attacked while you're in the self-driving mode. But they said they intentionally put in something to like kind of discourage
Mm,
enemies from attacking you. Not completely, but like minimized it or
mm,
something. So that was kind of interesting because it's really meant to, as we were saying, just enjoy the atmosphere, put on some music. The game has fantastic music, tons of radio stations. Of course, the expansion adds an entire new one. Slightly less fond of that radio station, but it does have two tracks by Giselle on it, so that's kind of funny.
nice.
Um, One of them's actually pretty legit. Not gonna lie. The other one didn't like so much, but
Mm,
it's a rap song, so it's kind of funny. It Giselle rap. But yeah, amazing atmosphere and yeah, lots of cool architecture. You can find just really driving around on the auto drive. You can see that, like, just say, park your car or whatever, and just walk around. Especially some cool. Yeah, you can find like all these random gardens. You can find like oddball monks. You can overhear just families talking, but the conversations go on for a while. Like you can sit there for like 2 minutes, and it's
mhm,
not like a looping conversation. It's this like ongoing thing, and sometimes it's really interesting. So
mhm.
yeah, or you can sit down at like a noodle bar or whatever the heck, and just like eat some food, hang out. Yeah, it's great. They've
Yeah,
added a lot of atmospheric touches over time. You used to have to mod that stuff in, but now they've patched a lot of it in. So officially, um, yeah,
very nice.
yeah. Speaking of mods, unfortunately, I doubt the Mac would support them in any particular capacity because none of them are on Steam. They're all through Nexus mods, and I think just about all of them unpack, repack the game files.
Yeah, it probably depends a bit on how it does that. Obviously, if it's like an exe that you run, like a Windows binary, you can't just run that straight.
Yeah,
But stuff that just manipulates textures and stuff, probably
yeah,
works. I don't
yeah,
assume that they've changed the format of any of that. But anything that messes with like the actual executable binary, definitely not gonna work.
yeah. I
Um,
suspect there are, like you said, some mods that might work because you could drop them in and the game could read them, but I don't know what those are. I'm a mod fiend. I think I at one point had like 100 of them running on
mhm.
PC. The game doesn't need mods. I just like them. Um,
But it's a
Some of
very
my
interesting
yeah,
question. Like we should try that and see how some of it goes.
yeah, it is. If I had one mod related complaint, so to speak, is potentially two. One, I do think the main mods I preferred were civilian and population and traffic density. I
Mm,
like doubled it because the thing, just the city and everything feels way more alive, especially when you're walking around. The game isn't bare bones, but like sometimes it's slightly more sparse than you might think. To be fair, in the latest patch, I think they added like new cars and variants for traffic, so like maybe traffic's better now. And on PC, there was this like some hidden option you could crank the population slider to like some extreme or ludicrous level. I don't know if that's unlocked on Mac though. Um, and honestly, when you level up a bit, the combat isn't particularly challenging, even on like hard.
yeah.
My buddy's been complaining about that a lot. I don't mind because I enjoy the power fantasy and like creatively finishing off enemies and whatever. But if you are looking for more of a combat challenge, there was a very good mod that added like mini bosses to every like gang and more net runners who could use all the same hacks as you, which is quite dangerous because they can blind you, they can disable your gun, they can set you on fire, they can do all this cool stuff
Hmm.
with the enemy net runners. So those are like two things. But again, the game's relatively old. This is the kind of stuff they'll definitely quote unquote fix, in Cyberpunk 2 from the get go rather than whatever. So they're very minor. To me, they don't detract from the game. Um, some people might slightly, but the game. I think even the expansion has sold some record numbers. I think it sold something like 8 million copies, Phantom
Mm,
Liberty, and that's apparently in terms of core audience of a base game and how many buy an expansion. It's like crazy, crazy numbers because normally a much smaller percentage of people buy an expansion,
yeah.
purportedly anyway. So.
Very cool.
So yeah, the game's popular. I think it's over 35 million copies total between the base game and the expansion now. So no shortage of people. Hopefully, the Mac numbers can add to that. Not that it's all about numbers, but I'm rambling. Yeah, the mod stuff's interesting. We'll have to test and get back to people on that if we can discover anything.
Hmm. Yeah, and the more successful this is, the better it is for Mac gaming as a whole. So there's like some
Exactly.
relevance to the numbers. Um,
That's true. That's true.
but it's also not that long ago since Edge Runners 2 was announced, right? So
Yeah,
the
yeah. Pretty
Cyberpunk
hyped for
marketing
that.
machine is in full gear.
It is. They're also releasing more comics. There's now a prequel series with Rebecca and Pilaf, two of the characters from Edgerunners, like their origin story, essentially. It's like a manga thing or whatever from Dark Horse Comics. I read a
Nice.
volume, highly entertaining. But of course, Rebecca's my favorite character from Edgerunners, so there's that. But anyway, yeah, the Cyberpunk media machine, so to speak, quite favorable. Yeah, Edgerunners 2 was announced. They got more comics. Cyberpunk 2 was officially announced just a month or two back, I think. We already knew it was coming. It's called Project Orion, but then they officially
Mhm.
renamed it like Cyberpunk 2. So I suspect also it will be have very little relation to the current game in terms of you know story characters or whatever.
Almost
Um,
definitely.
yeah, they might have a few nods or something, or you hear about it on a TV station or a little data pad. You read, whatever stuff like that
Yeah.
might show up, but otherwise, I think it might even said it. I think they said it's set in an entirely new city. Maybe that,
Mm.
unless I'm mixing that up with Edge Runners 2, I forget which.
Mm.
But maybe it was Cyberpunk 2. I think they were going to say it was not a night city, or maybe it was Night City plus another city or something. I'm not sure, but
Mm.
that's all a ways off. But yeah, more cool stuff.
Do we have a year for it?
Cyberpunk
Not like
fans.
release year, but is it gonna be like 2089?
Oh no, they didn't. They didn't say that. But I imagine that's a good question. I would be surprised if they kept it the same year.
Hmm.
But
I
we'll
mean,
see. I don't know. Yeah,
it's been a
yeah,
tradition of the tabletop game that they've changed the year every time. Like
correct.
2013 was the original, then 2020,
Yeah,
2035, I think, and then
yeah,
2045 for the latest
yeah,
tabletop.
correct. And they've just started to add modules for 2077, or in the case of Edgerunners 2076. I believe there is actually official some modules released for Edgerunners at the
Yeah,
moment, from what I know.
yeah,
I don't know if there's any for 2077, but it's essentially the same, 1 year apart. So essentially the same thing.
yeah.
Um, that was what I think they call them supplements. So it's not like a full core like release game for that year of Cyberpunk and the tabletop, but there's like, here's this module add-on thing you can do.
Yeah, it uses
Um,
the same system as 2045, the red system.
right. Yeah. Cyberpunk Red. So yeah, I'm not sure if CD Projekt can just change the year. Do they have to get approval from Mike Pondsmith's company? I forget the name who runs,
Art Helsorian is the name of the company. Yeah.
them. Yeah. Like, cause they own the original license IP, whatever. Yeah, not sure, but they opened up an entire new studio in America, in Boston, and it's being headed by the who was I think he was the lead quest designer on the original Cyberpunk or something like that, and he's now like lead game dev or co-lead or something like that, and he's heading up Cyberpunk 2, so that's pretty cool.
Nice.
Um, veteran of the studio, worked on a lot of the Witcher games and stuff as well, so and he was on the stream, the patch stream 2.3. He's so enthusiastic about the game at all times, and he's like so pumped about the fans and just so thankful. I really appreciate a game dev like that who obviously like you can see the guy's not faking it. He's genuinely like just loves the game, loves the community, loves the lore, wants to make a good game. Like after Edgerunners came out, he used to like stream on Twitch, and he had there's this little clip of him that went viral on the Cyberpunk Reddit. He was just kind of like losing his mind, like because the game had a reputational hit right after launch, and this was before I think patch 2.2 or 2.1, the big one, or maybe just patch 2.0, the big one that changed the game. It only happened after Edge Runners. And after Edge Runners came out, I think they had more players than launch. It like went
Yeah.
back to like over a million people playing it, or 1.1 or 1.2. Like it went to the moon. Haha, little reference there. Um, and yeah, he was just on stream like, "Thank you so freaking much." He wasn't saying freaking like he was just like losing his mind basically in his desk on his
Mhm.
desk, like thanking the community, and he was just everyone's so pumped to want to deliver the best game possible for the fans, and thank you, thank you, thank you. And then they came out with all the cool patches, and the game did indeed get a second lease on life, and then the expansion came out, and yada yada. So that's the guy leading Cyberpunk 2, which gives me a lot of confidence. Not that I lacked confidence in the game, but I'm really happy to see just this wildly passionate dev who seems to know what he's doing, respects the fans, likes the community, like very like well-rounded approach to game dev. So
Mhm.
my 2 cents, but yeah,
I
happy
mean,
happy to see that.
in many ways, Cyberpunk is the ultimate redemption story of any video game, right? Like from that huge pit it was in at launch, where everyone was just like, "Oh, it's horrible. It runs like garbage. There's all these issues. You can't finish a lot of the quests. Your mileage may
PlayStation
vary.
banned
People
it.
had various levels of issues, but there were so many issues for so many people.
Yeah,
Uh,
all the
oh,
T-posing, the bugs. Yeah, PlayStation yanked it from their store. I do remember sending my friend a message, David. I remember sending him a message. I was in my car, funny enough, like on just recording on speaker. And I was like, I've been playing the Cyberpunk game. And I'm like 10 hours in. And it's like, it's both the best and the worst game I've ever played. It's so frustrating. It's so good, but it's also so terrible.
yeah.
This was back at launch, like a week after launch or something. So I have that like mixed experience of the game as
Mhm.
well. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, but they really like turned it into a positive
Oh
in
my
the end.
God, I still think it's one of now the best games ever made.
Mhm.
At least within a genre, I would say that in general, personally.
Mhm.
I am biased, heavily biased, I have to admit that, but um, similar to Baldur's Gate 3, like whether you like it or not, they've put so much work and polish into the game over so many years. Now, Baldur's Gate 3 launched well, that's a different story.
Mhm.
But the end result now, you buy the game today, you play it today, it's like, what experience can you get? It's like, you can get a 10 out of 10 experience,
Yeah.
um, in my opinion. Baldur's Gate 3 is probably more accessible, maybe. It really depends, obviously. They're very wildly different games. I'm not trying to compare them. Even
Mhm.
though they're both in the RPG category, there's zero similarity or relevance, really.
Very different games, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I mean, arguably, Baldur's Gate is like a CRPG and like a classic
Yeah.
RPG, and this is a action RPG or something.
Yeah, shootery RPG.
Yeah.
Yeah, most of the RPG elements come in the form of your build rather than like heavy story manipulation or character manipulation as in like choices. There are still lots of story choices and wildly different endings and quest endings and stuff, but a lot of and I had a different board game friend I got into the game and he has a very much a like D&D tabletop background. And he didn't complain, but he's like, "Oh, my expectation coming in, this was labeled an RPG. I thought it'd be more like RPG-ish, the way I'm
Mm,
used to." But
mm,
he said, "Oh no, most of the variety is actually in like combat builds and
definitely.
stuff like that, which are very extensive, especially in the latest updates. Like you can play really, really different characters, and the expansion adds some more fine tuning to that
Hmm.
with some extra upgrades and stuff. So you unlock
Yeah,
a new little skill tree, basically.
even though it is based on a tabletop, you aren't playing your character; you are playing the character.
Correct,
So
correct.
yeah.
Yeah. Yes, that is this the guy who mentioned that specifically like to craft like these outrageous custom characters and D&D and stuff
Hmm.
with, their own extensive lore and motivation. So yes, he still had a good time with the game. He just, wasn't as like it's the best game ever the way I might be.
Yeah.
But yeah, he had a good time with it. He had these anyway, different story, but he really couldn't stand Johnny Silverhand, which was funny.
Oh, I
He's like,
love
he's the
Johnny.
worst human being ever. He's so vile. I can't stand him. I want to get him out of my head.
Johnny is, in
I
my opinion, probably the best part of that game. I love whenever he's around.
pretty much. I mean, I can't imagine the game without him at all.
Yeah.
Like, it's a game, but it's not even remotely the same game.
Hmm.
No, I'm a huge. I mean, obviously, I'm a Keanu Reeves fan. That's obvious, but I am. Um, but yeah, I think Johnny makes the game in a lot of ways, and it'd be a
Hmm.
substantially not only different game but worse game without him.
Hmm.
It's also very well integrated into the expansion, Phantom Liberty, and I would
Yes.
say even possibly some of his best scenes are in Phantom Liberty. Especially if you take the new ending that comes as a result of Phantom Liberty. It's actually like maybe the best scenes between V and Johnny, straight up, like this incredible conversation and emotion and stuff going on. Very, very interesting. Can't spoil anything, but I'll just say that. Just like the point is, even years later, several years later, they brought back Keanu Reeves, and here's
Hmm.
his new story bits and his new voice lines and whatever, and he just completely like slides right into the role again. It's obviously seamlessly integrated into the game, but these are several years apart in terms of dev time and recording and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't miss a beat. Just it's really good. Yeah, I
Very
love
nice.
Johnny. He's a very interesting, complex character, and again, depending on your actions, even as a V, you can really influence him in different ways. That's what I told my friend. Just like keep playing. You can really ultimately kind of decide what direction Johnny goes in. So
Yeah,
just keep playing the game.
definitely. Um, yeah, it's generally very positive. Happy it's finally out on Mac. Better late than never, and good stuff.
It's a good time.
Mhm.
Yeah. So other than Cyberpunk shenanigans, even messing around with Tahoe betas, right? Any
Yeah.
interesting thoughts or comments there?
Um, I mean, for one thing, it's probably the most stable early beta experience I've had with an early macOS beta, maybe ever. I don't know.
Nice.
But your mileage may vary. It's still developer beta. There is a public beta now as well, but um, and people online have been reporting huge amounts of issues. So again, it's different for everybody, but it's
Sure.
very very stable for me. There are some graphical glitches here and there, but nothing major or anything.
Right.
Obviously, there's the new gaming related content. There's the games app, and there's the new games overlay while we're in games. That's the biggest thing from a gaming perspective in like a user facing uh, way. Then of course there's the underlying Metal 4 stuff, but aside from stuff I play around with programming myself, there's obviously not a lot out there that makes use of that yet. Um,
Right.
but the games overlay is very bare bones right now. It's going to have your achievements and stuff from Game Center in there at some point, and your Game Center friends and stuff. But I'm not really convinced that's going to do that much for people because how much of your gaming network is on Game Center, right? Like we're on Steam and Epic and all that, right? We're not
Yeah.
on Game Center, and I'm not really sure that the enthusiast community is ever gonna move over there.
Right.
No matter how much Apple would love that. So I'm not sure how much the gaming overlay is really going to do for that. It does also have some other cool features in it that are more useful, like the ability on the laptops to quickly enable and disable things like low power mode and high performance mode.
Nice.
Um, and there are some more APIs for games to adjust themselves to low performance mode and high performance mode. So if you in a game, you might if the game is programmed for it, it's not just an automatic thing. If you enable low power mode, it might, in addition to the Mac just lowering its frequencies and running slower and running at a lower frame rate, the game might also adapt by changing the render resolution, changing the settings such that you might maintain a 60 FPS experience even though your Mac is now running slower, to extend your battery life while you play in a remote location where you can't get to a charger or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Um, and then there are options in the game's overlay menu to remap controller buttons straight from the overlay menu. That's sort of it, really, from like an enthusiast perspective. All of the Game Center stuff is not really a big thing, in my opinion.
Right.
Um, then there's the Games app, the other big user-facing thing, and it's feeling very early right now. At
Mm.
WWDC, they said it would be fully usable with a games controller. It currently isn't at all. You can only use it with mouse and keyboard. Really, only
Right.
mouse. There's very little keyboard in there as well in terms of shortcut. Um, Fortunately, it does integrate with all of the games on your Mac, not just Mac App Store games. So you can see your
Nice.
Cyberpunk in there, even though it's from Steam. You can see even games that aren't from any specific storefront. You've just uh, got it from a DVD if you're old school or whatever. Any
Right. Right.
any any application that is categorized as a game in its info bundle. That's up to the developers to categorize, and then it'll show in the games app as a game.
Nice.
So once you get good controller support in there eventually and stuff, you'll be able to use it sort of like Steam's big picture mode and launch your games from there and stuff. But it's a bit underbaked right now.
Right.
then it's effectively also the same as the Mac App Store, but specifically for games. And we've been talking about that in the past in the show, where we want Apple to split up the App Store and give us a game store instead, because there's
Yep.
so much stuff that's specific to games that having this hybrid App Store is like the worst of both worlds for searching for apps and searching for games.
Right.
Um, Unfortunately, I don't really feel like the games app in its current state fixes any of the problems.
Mm.
It just separates things out, but it doesn't help in any way. It's just a different view of the same stuff. It's not like we get better search filters for I want to find FPS games. You know, you still have the exact same categorization as on the App Store, and all of the buttons are just like view on the App Store. You can't even purchase directly from the Games app, and
Uh,
it feels a bit identityless, pointless, underbaked right now. All of the above. um, it does have a tab called Play Together where you can invite friends to play immediately through the Game Center API. But again, it's the Game Center API. You need your friends on Game Center,
right. Right.
um, and it basically only works with like iPad tier games, iPhone tier games right now, because they are the only ones that really integrate with the Game Center, play together lobby system and stuff. So I don't really know if the games app is going to do what we want it to do from an enthusiast perspective, or if it's just going to be another kind of Apple Arcade like initiative that might work really well for casual game situations, with the whole play together stuff, and bundling your achievements in a better place than deep within system settings where they are now, which is so hard to find for a casual player and stuff.
Yes.
I'm not convinced that it's going to be anything big or amazing for quote unquote us, like the enthusiast gamers. Yeah, um, but we'll see. I might have a different opinion on it when it releases. Of course, all of the data in there right now is based on what already exists, and there's no developers who have specifically gone in there and edited their App Store pages to take advantage of the Games app and stuff, because it isn't out for the public yet. So things might change with the public release, but for now, even though it's wonderful that Apple is emphasizing games more, the Games app and the game overlay doesn't do a lot for enthusiast gamers. We are more benefited by the underlying technologies of Metal 4, ray reconstruction, all that jazz. But the verdict was also out on that, because nothing is really using any of that yet.
Right.
So that's
But
sort
as
of
a
the
first,
unfortunate
right.
truth. But yeah.
Well, as a first step, maybe clumsy or not ideal, but at least it's something and not nothing. Maybe they do something with it later,
Mhm.
hopefully, like more substantial later, I mean,
Yeah.
in the way we're hoping or talking about. You had mentioned the public beta was out. Like, is there an official release date for Tahoe or anything? Like, it's just out,
Um.
update, you know?
So yeah, the public beta is out. But from the perspective of official release dates, there's nothing concrete. But the way it usually works is that you get iOS 26 in September with the new iPhones to come out there,
Yep.
and then you either get the new macOS at the same time, which things are looking like might happen this year, or you get it
Mm,
like October, a little bit later, possibly alongside an announcement of some new Mac stuff. Possibly not. It might just drop. But it's either in that September October timeframe, one of the two.
makes sense.
Mhm. But yeah, I fully expect that we'll see some updates to the big Mac game announcements. One is Tahoe lands with the better support for the new features there.
Right.
But we'll see.
Nice.
Yeah, and then of course, the big thing from our perspective as well with Tahoe is that uh, it'll support game porting toolkit 3. I think is the latest one. I got
Hmm.
confused on the
Yep.
numbering. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Should be three.
Yep. And that's a big deal. Like that's a huge improvement. So that one fully uses Metal 4 already.
Nice.
It it maps the DLSS stuff into the metal effects equivalents, fixes a bunch of bugs that were previously there, so games run better, more stable, fixes graphical issues, all the jazz, and improves
Right.
performance all around. So if you're using crossover to play uh, whatever Windows games you might want to play, the experience is going to be substantially improved by Game Porting Toolkit 3 and Tahoe that are intrinsically linked. You can't have one without the, well, you can have Tahoe without Game Porting Toolkit, but not the other way around, right? So, yeah.
Yes, yes,
Um,
correct.
so that's also a big thing coming with Tahoe eventually. So, yeah, good stuff on that front.
It is good. And last thing to mention on game releases, and I only just discovered it as before the show started, is Dead Island 2 finally came out for Mac, I think 2 or 3 days ago. Like no fanfare, no real announcement, just they just released it on the App Store, Steam, and Epic. I don't think GOG. On Steam, it is currently 75% off, whopping. So it's only $15. Pretty baller. It's in my cart. Probably going to buy it as soon as the show ends and download it. Big fan of the old Dead Island games. The devs later went on Techland, made Dying Light, which used to be on the Mac. Blah blah blah. I say used to because I think it got no, maybe it got updated anyway in the transition from 32 to 64-bit or whatever. I think it might have gotten wiped. I'm not sure. Doesn't really matter.
No, no,
Anyway,
no, no. I played a little bit of that on my M1 Pro,
well,
M1 Max MacBook Pro.
I think it just gives you a banner warning on the Steam page, but it still works. I think that's what I'm
Yeah, maybe
thinking of.
something like that, but it definitely does still work, and it was running at like 120 FPS, so it does work.
Yeah, right.
There
Yeah,
was some glitchiness with it where I think it was something like with the loading screens being all black or something, but once you got into the
yeah.
game, it was fine. So,
Yeah, I even had some issues with that, I think, on Intel when it came out for Mac, from what I recall. Just
mm,
running it normally, there was some sort of black screen jankiness, but it worked out. But yeah, Dead Island 2's out. Kind of brainless zombie bashing fun. Great with buddies. Fine single player, better with at least one friend, though.
mm,
Um, Oddly enough, you're not really on an island anymore. I think it's set in LA or something,
mm,
or San Francisco, but whatever. It's still called Dead Island. Yeah, but same
yeah.
thing. Mostly melee, some guns. You run around, you kill zombies creatively, and go on like stupid quests. So, um, I've always generally been a fan of the games. I didn't want to pay full price. Now it's on sale. Now it's on Mac. So kind of a perfect time to grab it. Yeah,
Mhm.
Dead Island 2. It went through, anyway, there's a long, long history to Dead Island 2. It even took forever to release on PC, let alone Mac. So,
Yeah, I would
yeah.
argue that if you are into like the original Borderlands and that sort of game, then Dead Island is gonna be right up your alley. Um,
Yeah, that's actually a great analogy, actually, or a great similar style
mhm.
of game in a sense. Yep, definitely,
Did the
definitely.
original Dead Island come out on Mac?
It did, but that did get canned by the 32-bit or whatever
Right,
apocalypse.
right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
But
so
that was
that one
Feral back
didn't
in the
get
day,
updated.
wasn't it?
I Dead Island. I don't recall. I don't think so. I
Okay,
don't think they
maybe it
did.
was first party or something. I don't know.
Um, I'm trying to look it up right now. I used to have like a oh, it's called Definitive Edition now, Dead Island Definitive, because they combined it with the expansion or something.
Hmm.
I mean, Techland's dead. Publisher is always Deep Silver. It's not even like the Mac version's like gone from Steam,
Right.
I
Okay.
think. Or if you own it, you could install it. I'd have to go look. I don't think it's Feral. I mean,
Hmm.
I can log
Okay.
into my here. I can give me a moment. My Feral Press login still works. LOL.
Hmm.
So let's see platforms. Here we go. We're on Mac. Nope. No, it wasn't them.
Yeah.
I have
Okay.
their whole
Fair
list
enough.
of Mac games here. I forget who it was. It may have been internal, but yeah, more Mac games coming. No fanfare on that one, but it's still a AAA game. Pretty good graphics. It's ultra violent zombie nonsense. So whether that's you immediately know whether it's for you or not. There's
Mhm.
no deep discussion if
Honestly, like
that's
my
your genre.
favorite part about these games finally releasing Cyberpunk, Dead Island 2, RoboCop, all this is the
Yeah,
fact that Apple can no longer reuse the same games if they want to go like, and these games are coming to Mac. They'll have to put some new games on there.
right. Oh, I think since the last show, RoboCop also came out. So
Yeah,
yeah, that
exactly,
that launched
exactly.
as well. Performance, I've heard some mixed things about it, but by all accounts, the game's pretty fun if you're a RoboCop fan. I
Mhm.
played the demo on PC. I'm not a big enough RoboCop fan. It is fun. I really enjoyed the demo, but I wouldn't really want to play an entire game as RoboCop, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
But it's if you love like that B movie vibe, RoboCop stuff, apparently it's like A plus.
Yeah.
If that's your jam. So, but
But
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
just looking forward to seeing what Apple is going to put on their slide of these games are coming to Mac next time when the
yeah,
games are
because
yeah,
yeah, Cyberpunk, Dead Island, and 2 and RoboCop were up there for like a year or something.
exactly.
Yeah, the previous last year's WWDC and this year's, they were both on the slide. So it's like, dude,
Yeah.
give me some new slides. So yeah, I agree with you there. Yeah, but good time to be a Mac gamer. More options than ever. Hot new releases. By all accounts, they're good games. They're well reviewed from critics and users alike. Meaning, RoboCop, Cyberpunk, Dead Island 2. Dead Island 2 is slightly lower. I think it's more like a 7.5, like more of around a 75, 7.5 out of 10 or something,
Mm.
rather than like, a 9 or 90% positive or something. But, like I said, it does what it says on the tin. Bash zombies, don't think too hard, have fun. That's Dead Island. So
Yeah.
you'll enjoy it or you won't. I usually do. So we'll check it out. But that'll be it for today's show. We'll be back theoretically sooner than normal with a mega uber cream cyberpunk deep dive review A through Z with Lily, maybe also Casper, but Lily and I finished the game completely. Casper hasn't, so we'll see how that goes. We'll
We
figure
might
it
do
out.
like a first half of the show, no spoilers, general
Yes.
review thoughts, and then I'll leave and you guys can talk full spoilers.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. We could do something like that. That would be perfect. So yeah, but we'll wrap it up here for today. So thanks for being here, Casper. Thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll catch you next show.
Have a great time, everybody.
Bye bye.